Hey guys, it's Alex from Source. We are here at RØDE Mic's headquarters in Silverwater, Sydney, and I'm joined by Ryan from RØDE. We've actually got two mics here. We've got the NTG4 and the NTG4 Plus, which are their two brand new shotguns. So Ryan, wanted to ask you some questions about them basically. I mean, talk us through the idea behind the NTG4. How does it sort of sit in the range and what's it for? You know, who's it for?
Sure. Well, I mean, firstly, the NTG4 series microphones sit just above the NTG1 and 2 and just below the NTG3 mics. Now, what makes the NTG4 series really cool, and the NTG4 Plus specifically, is that it is the first shotgun microphone in the world to have an inbuilt lithium-ion rechargeable battery. Now, what that means is that this microphone actually can be charged internally. You get 150 hours of operation out of a single charge, and you can charge it in as little as 2 hours. So any shoot that you're going onto, you can get multiple days of shooting with a single charge on the microphone. And the cool thing is that it actually charges via micro USB.
Nice.
Now the NTG4 is essentially the same microphone, but it doesn't have the internal battery. So if you're the type of user that has phantom power available on every shoot, and you don't need the battery power, then you can actually just run the NTG4. The interesting thing with the NTG4 Plus is that it can also be powered via phantom power, and you're actually notified by an LED light. So if I turn on the mic right now, you can see it's gone green.
Right.
That's letting you know that the NTG4 Plus is on, first of all, and that it's being powered by battery power. Now, if that LED is shining blue, then you know that you've got phantom power engaged. So if you're on a shoot and you're not sure if you've actually got your phantom running and you haven't charged the mic in a long time or something, you can actually just see immediately on the microphone itself. Now, there are a few interesting features on the NTG4 Plus that we haven't seen on other shotgun microphones before, namely the digital switching. Now, the first benefit of digital switching is that you have the microphone completely enclosed. There's nothing exposed to the elements. So that means that you've got a shorter signal path between the switch where your audio is actually running. We don't actually have to cable up to a switch or anything like that. It's all really nice, which ultimately gives you a lower noise floor of the microphone.
So you're talking about behind the switches, literally there's no extra electronics getting in there.
Exactly, yeah, it's like straight onto the board. That's the nice thing. Whenever you put a switch in, you kind of have to cater for that switch and kind of route the audio. On the actual features of the switches, we've taken cues from the Stereo Video Mic X, which we recently released, and we actually had a really cool feature on that, which is the high frequency boost. Now, anytime you put mass in front of a microphone, such as a windscreen, if you have a foam windscreen with a furry as well, any windshielding that you put in front of a microphone will inevitably roll off a little bit of the high end. What this enables you to do is actually bring back that presence and actually boost it up a little bit so that you can get nicer captured audio on set exactly how you want it without as much post-processing later on. So it just kind of reduces your workflow time.
What sort of shelf? A couple of dB or how?
So it's a 6 dB shelf at 5 kilohertz. And that's just basically grabbing everything above 5K and bringing it up, and that's the presence for vocals. It also brings up, you know, the nice kind of background sounds if you're doing any kind of Atmos recording. Below that, you have a high pass filter. That's at 75 hertz, and it's just going to roll off the bottom end. Most of the time when you're shooting, especially if you're indoors, the noise that you get from outside, the extraneous noise, is usually represented in that kind of low frequency range. It's rumble from traffic, it's people slamming doors in the distance, things like that.
But we're not talking sort of any frequencies that would affect the human voice.
Absolutely not, no. It's well outside the human voice, and an interesting point with that is that, shotgun microphones are generally being used to record the human voice, so it's nice to know that that is, well out of that kind of spectrum. And then you have the minus 10 dB pad, which basically just enables you to attenuate the signal coming in. So if you're recording something super loud, you can actually pop on that pad, and then it just enables you to use a mic with a wider range of sound sources. The switches have a really nice tactile feel, so you can kind of really feel it. Yeah, it's just like a nice quality switch. And it also has an LED right in the middle of each switch, just to let you know. The cool thing is that if you turn it off, it actually remembers the last position. So there's no inconvenience over using a physical switch where you know where.
So if you put it in the blimp or something, you don't have to disassemble the blimp to set it up all again for your shoot.
Exactly. Every time you turn it on, it'll be at the same settings you had it on last time.
So what if folks were, you're like 3 or 4 days into a shoot, you've forgotten to charge the NTG4. Does the mic indicate kind of its battery status to you? How do you know whether you're nearly running out of charge?
Yeah, so the actual power LED itself gives you a lot more information about whether it's just on or off. As you start running out of battery, it'll turn yellow to let you know, then it'll turn red, and then it's flashing red. If it's flashing red, you do still have some time. You've got about 4 hours to actually get it plugged in and charged up. But you should definitely be thinking about charging it if you're at that kind of point.
But you can obviously then phantom power it,
Of course, yeah. You can always just phantom power the mic, and while you get a full charge in as little as 2 hours, if you even just plug it in for 15 minutes, I mean, you're going to be running for a long time.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
For guys who are using shotguns, are there any sort of tips that we can, tell people? Any like good practices, good things to do, good ways of using them? Any advice?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a number of different things you can do to maximize your shotgun microphone. First of all, people are often shooting indoors and outdoors. That's just standard when you're filming. Anytime that you're outdoors, you should be using a furry wind cover at a minimum. Now, the microphones always come with a foam windshield. That's basically just for like when you're moving quickly indoors and you get some wind. When you consider how sensitive a microphone capsule is to actually pick up vibrations in the air, you can imagine what wind is actually doing to the microphone. So you always want to use at least a furry wind cover. Now, as you get into higher and higher wind, there's other devices available like the blimp, for instance, which actually gives you a lot of still air around the microphone, then an insane amount of protection from the wind.
Yeah.
That would be the first step that I would suggest. Secondly, whether you're mounting it on camera, whether you're mounting it on a boom pole, you always want to make sure that you've got the microphone suspension mounted. Now, if you've got that on top of the camera on a hard clip, what's going to happen is every time you click a button, that shock is going to go through the microphone, you're going to hear it. Now, by simply putting it onto a suspension mount, it actually isolates the microphone from any of the physical mechanical noise, and it makes sure that that capsule isn't affected and you get clean audio. At the same time, it's just as important to secure your cable in the right way so that it's actually got a little bit of bend to it to make sure that you're not actually transferring any noise mechanically through. Now, the most important thing when using any microphone is your mic technique and your positioning. Now, a shotgun microphone is highly directional, and that enables you to actually shoot from a little bit further away than an omnidirectional microphone, like a lav mic that we're using here. That's something that you would mount on the body. Now, with shotgun microphones, you can actually use that pattern to your advantage to reduce the noise in the areas that you know that the noise are coming from. So often you'll see in like Hollywood films, for instance, if you see any behind the scenes where they're recording dialogue, people speaking, they'll have the microphone mounted from above. Now, the reason for that is when you consider having a microphone mounted, say, on camera at a distance and picking up somebody speaking in front of the camera, you're picking them up directly on axis in the pickup zone of the shotgun microphone, but you're also picking up what's behind them. If there's any kind of noise sources, you're also picking up your neighbour mowing his lawn across the way. And the rejection zone of the microphone is actually from the sides, so it's actually rejecting sound from the sides. So by placing the mic from above, the quietest area generally on a set is the floor. When you're doing dialogue, your vocals are kind of passing straight ahead, so you're picking up the dialogue, but what you're doing is actually reducing all the environmental noise all around. If you can't physically fit the microphone above, then often the best next choice is to scoop it from below. You just make sure that you're not underneath a tree that's generating a lot of noise from wind or something like that.
And can folks use the sort of high frequency boost as a creative tool in that sort of situation as well?
You sure can, yeah. I mean, if you want to bring a little bit more presence to your audio in general, just get it a little bit crisper, you can use the high frequency boost, and that'll boost the intelligibility of vocals. It'll also bring up any kind of atmos in the background. If you're using it for something other than dialogue, you can use the shotgun mic to record any kind of source of audio that you like.
So if folks have any more questions about the NTG4, NTG4 Plus, how can they get in touch with you, ask any questions?
We put a lot of time into educational videos that you can find on YouTube. If you go to our website, rode.com, you can find tons of different information. And if you have a specific question that you can't find the answer to, you can either hit us up through the contact form or just tweet us at RØDE Mics and we'll get back to you right away.
Sweet. Thanks, Ryan.
Great, thank you.